regardless of where you're at in your career, you may not always feel prepared, but it's important to be obedient and take that step.
Well, hi, everyone. Welcome to the Framework Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Ken Engel, president of Southeastern University. Joining me is our co-host, Michael Steiner, SCU Senior Vice President for Advancement and Innovation. And we're excited today to welcome our guest, Chester W. Spellman, an SCU alum, a passionate servant leader. And Chester is president of CW Spellman Consulting, where he advises nonprofit organizations across the country on strategy and management. He was appointed by President Trump to serve as the National Director of AmeriCorps in 2017, leading national impact and program improvement for over 3 years. Prior to that, he also served as CEO of Volunteer Florida for more than 5 years, with over 25 years in the nonprofit sector and a decade in public service leadership. Chester has devoted his life to servant leadership, and it's great to have you on the podcast today. We're looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Let's open the conversation. You've had an amazing career with more than 25 years of experience in the nonprofit sector. Tell us about your journey helping nonprofit organizations fulfill mission and stay sustainable. What are some of the lessons from your time in the nonprofit sector that have shaped your approach to building, great organizational models, especially when resources these days can be limited?
Yeah, that's great. Well, the amazing thing is I got my start right there at Southeastern University. I graduated 25 years ago, and I just vividly remember my time at Southeastern. And during that time, really instilled in me a passion for service. And so for the last 25 years, I've been working, starting off doing ministry work and working with faith-based organizations, and then kind of transitioning to working with more general nonprofits and spend some time in the public sector as well. But for me, the one thing that has remained the same is a passion to serve others and a passion for servant leadership.
Love it. So as you're working with these organizations, you're consulting, you're coming in, how do you look at what practices are sustainable, and how do you start taking steps to address any kind of weaknesses as you're seeing in there?
Yeah. So really for me, sustainability is the most important thing that a nonprofit should be looking at. For a nonprofit organization, their mission has to be sustainable for the work to continue. So really looking at long-term sustainability. And that entails a number of different things, but really the most important thing I would argue is financial sustainability. A lot of nonprofits struggle with financial sustainability. They don't have the resources. Revenue for a nonprofit is the fuel that keeps the mission going. Right. And so there needs to be just a strong model to generate that revenue. But the other aspect of sustainability is diversifying that revenue. And so that's something I really work with nonprofits on, is evaluating their funding model, looking to see if their revenue is diversified and if they have the resources to continue to do the work that they're doing.
Yeah, and I think, with nonprofits, you hear that a lot. You kind of assume that a lot, that financial sustainability is one of the things that struggle. But tell us about the successful nonprofits, the ones that go the distance and exist for a long time and have a lot of impact. What are some of the characteristics you see in them from afar that really could be emulated across industries?
Yeah, for a successful nonprofit, I would say it starts with leadership. They have strong leadership both at the board level and at the staff level. Next is the team. They have a team that is committed to the mission. They also have a strong mission and vision, and the work that they do on a daily basis is aligned with that mission and vision. And then the other aspect is, like we talked about, financial sustainability. They have the resources that they need to do the work and to make an impact. And I would say the other thing that's really important and kind of a key for a successful nonprofit organization is just research and evaluation. Yeah. They're measuring their success. They're not just doing good work, but they're evaluating that to determine and really hopefully prove that the work that they're doing is moving the needle and making an impact in their community.
When you look at the organizations and leaders, for that matter, that sometimes struggle with some of these sustainability issues, what are some practical tools or maybe a good framework do you recommend leaders use to evaluate sustainability to keep them on track in creating what is so important to have a healthy organization?
Yeah, I would say the most important thing is just taking a deep, honest look at their financial revenue model and evaluating to see whether or not it truly is sustainable. A mistake that a lot of nonprofits make is they rely on really one source of funding. That could be one large donor or one corporate partnership or one government grant. And if that funding stream goes away, then they're in trouble. I had an experience earlier in my career with the nonprofit that I worked with shortly after my time at Southeastern, where it was very strong for a number of years, but they relied too heavily on government funding.
Yeah. And
those government grants went away, and then the organization tried to hold on for a couple of years, but they ended up having to close their doors. So I think that's what I work with my clients and the nonprofits that I advise on is just take an honest look at your revenue model and seeing is it truly diverse, and if worst case scenario were to occur and one of your funding streams went away, are you strong enough and are you diversified enough that you would be able to continue to do your work?
Yeah. What's one of your favorite stories so far in your work as you've been helping nonprofits identify new revenue streams and different things like that?
Well, there's a lot of stories. I have the pleasure of being able to currently work with a lot of nonprofits, and over my 25 years, especially during my time in government, was able to work with thousands of nonprofits, and it's an honor to be able to come alongside them and partner with them. But I would say one of my favorite stories is a organization here in Jacksonville that I have the privilege of working with, and just seeing their journey. I came alongside them and partnered with them when they were a very young organization, and now it's been about 4 years, and just seeing their growth. But it's not just their growth in revenue, but it's their growth in impact. And so seeing how they've been able to generate more resources to fund the work, and how that's enabled them to serve more children.
Love it. And so as you've been kind of working in all these different spheres and as you've grown out, when was the moment that you realized, man, this is something I'd like to lean into, that I love helping nonprofits discover these efficiencies and improve and get better? Tell us your story of discovering that.
Yeah. So for me, I didn't realize I was going to have a career in the nonprofit sector. Coming out of Southeastern, I spent a couple of years in church ministry and thoroughly enjoyed that, but then ended up moving back home to Jacksonville and had the opportunity to work at a nonprofit organization, and started off at just a very kind of entry-level position.
Yeah.
And just doing the work, being there to help in whatever way that I can. And over a couple of years, kind of grew in the organization and ended up on more of a nonprofit leadership track. And as I grew in that organization, I realized that through leadership, there is the opportunity to make a big difference. Shortly after that, I shifted over to Tallahassee and was able to work in a government role where I was able to support dozens of nonprofits. And I think that was really the moment where I saw just in me a passion to not just help one organization, but really to help the sector.
I love it.
Yeah. You had an amazing opportunity, an incredible opportunity with your appointment by President Trump for the AmeriCorps under President Trump's first term. How did that opportunity come about? And when you look at your educational experience here at SCU and then other ways that you've been able to be a good steward of what you are doing, What were some of the things that helped prepare you for those kinds of opportunities that would come?
Well, thank you for that question. And it was truly an honor to serve under President Trump and in the first Trump administration. I was working in Tallahassee as the CEO of Volunteer Florida and working in the AmeriCorps program at the state level, and just received the opportunity to go at the national level and work in DC. I was pretty active at our national association, and so wasn't just working in Florida, but kind of had a leadership role at the association level, and that opened doors to pursue an appointment in DC. And I remember vividly, I was in St. Augustine on a work trip in July of 2017 and received the phone call from the White House asking me if I'd be interested in serving in the administration. And obviously, the immediate answer is yes, and moved to DC about two and a half, 3 weeks later, and was there for 3.5 years, and it was an amazing experience.
And tell us a little, for our listeners who may not be as familiar with AmeriCorps, tell us a little bit about what was the work you were doing at that point and kind of the impact that it had on our national level.
Yeah, for sure. So AmeriCorps is a national service program. Every year, there's around 60,000 individuals that serve in AmeriCorps. A lot of people have heard of the Peace Corps. AmeriCorps may not be as much of a household name as the Peace Corps, but whereas Peace Corps is focused on international service, AmeriCorps is focused on domestic service. So individuals, a lot of times young people right out of college, decide to serve for a year in AmeriCorps, and they come partner alongside a nonprofit organization that is running an AmeriCorps program, and they serve in that program for a year, providing various types of service to their community, whether that's working in education or supporting the environment, or working with veterans or doing disaster response. There's a lot of different aspects when it comes to AmeriCorps service, but the role that I had in DC was really one of facilitating the program nationally, overseeing the grant budgets for the agency, and ensuring that the funds were used appropriately, and just really kind of being a watchdog for those federal funds, making sure that the nonprofits were using them in the way that was established. And also setting the policy for the program.
I love it. And so how did that experience working there set you up now for kind of the management consulting that you're doing now? And what are some of the principles you look at as you're working with these organizations from your time in the appointment?
Yeah, well, both my time in Tallahassee and in DC, I was able to support hundreds and thousands of nonprofit organizations. And so was able to work with their leadership, with their board, kind of just get a glimpse into what works well, what doesn't work well, what are the challenges they're facing, what are the successes, what are the keys to success. And so being able to work with such a wide variety of nonprofits, coming out of my appointment, decided to open up my own business and really serve as an advisor to nonprofits to help them build strong, sustainable, effective organizations.
Yeah, as a business consultant working with a lot of organizations, how do you assess if an organization's strategy is still aligned with its mission and vision, especially in a rapidly changing environment? We see a lot of organizations that kind of start missional drift. And how do you help that?
Yeah, that's so important. And I think that unfortunately there are a lot of organizations that their mission drifts over time. And what I like to say is if the strategy and what they do on a daily basis with their programs and services, if that doesn't align with their mission and vision, then really the organization is lost, and it needs to come back into alignment, because the only way that mission is going to get accomplished is if their strategy and the work that they do on an ongoing basis is in service to that mission and vision.
Yeah.
Love it.
good.
And as we wrap up our conversation, you had such a great career coming out of your education here at Southeastern. What advice would you give to some recent grads as they're kind of stepping into their work role? How can they prepare themselves for what God's called them to do into their career and future?
Yeah, I vividly remember my time coming out of Southeastern, and it's exciting, but it can be daunting as well for a recent grad, just trying to figure out what God has in store for them and what life holds. But I think some of the principles for me is just to persevere. I certainly faced many challenges early in my career, and so I think it's important to, even with failure and with challenges, to keep going. Another principle is humility, just staying humble and really obedience to God's plan and to the call that He has for their lives. And the other thing is just to it's important to take a step of faith at times. Yeah. I know I had a career shift in 2021 when I left the administration, when my time in DC was over, and had to figure out what was next. And I decided to start my own business, but it required a step of faith. And so regardless of where you're at in your career, you may not always feel prepared, but it's important to be obedient and take that step.
Yeah. Well, Chester, we want to thank you for joining us today on the Framework Leadership Podcast. Your service has been amazing. And we're so proud that you are a graduate of SEU, and just the way that you have come alongside so many nonprofit organizations to help them to flourish, to grow, to be healthy, to be sustainable. It's just, you're a great gift, and we appreciate you so much and just grateful for this conversation.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Love it. And if you want to stay up to date with Chester, you can connect with him on LinkedIn at CW Spellman and on Facebook at Chester Spellman. And thank you so much for listening to the Framework Leadership Podcast today.
Have a great week, everybody.
Well, thanks for joining us on Framework Leadership. If you're watching on YouTube, like and subscribe so leadership insights keep coming your way. You can also catch every episode on your favorite podcast platforms and look for bonus resources. Subscribe to the Framework Leadership newsletter at kentingle.com. Make sure you're following us on Instagram at Kent_Ingle and at Dr. Michael Steiner, on X at Kent_Ingle, and at Facebook at Kent Ingle to stay up to date with the podcast and everything happening at Southeastern University.
Thanks for being part of the community.